It is Sunday, September 11th, 2 days after receiving my Canon 5D Mark IV, 3 days after the release. I am at the Cypress Tree Tunnel north of San Francisco in the Point Reyes National Park. I drove about 11 hours to get here between yesterday and today, and I have basically been shat on the entire way. I drove up the one, and either way, you don't care about the 5D. My first impressions about the 5D Mark IV are, it's a 5D. There's no question about it. It feels like a 5D. It shoots like a 5D. It feels just like a 5D Mark III. A little bit better. It feels really good to hold. It feels awesome. It feels like a 5D Mark III. I've shot with them a lot, and this one is just an improved version of that. You know, it's got new technologies, slightly better sensor that I can't actually see yet because I haven't been able to edit my photos because the RAW codec was changed by Canon, and of course Adobe hasn't updated that yet. So at this point I have to do a DNG converter to edit my photos, and I'm just not going to do that yet. I refuse to shoot anything with my cell phone because I really want to just put this thing through its paces. So last day I spent shooting photos. Drove from LA to San Francisco and then beyond San Francisco, left the camera basically on with automatic power off every 8 minutes, left GPS mode 2 on, and as of right now my battery power is 3/4. So that's not bad. I haven't checked the GPS yet, but I mean, we'll definitely get back and I'll take a look at the pictures and finish up this video by looking at the photos inside Lightroom, doing some edits on them. I'll do the DNG conversion and we'll take it from there. So, I just drove 1,000 miles. Let me say that again. I just drove 1,000 miles to test out the Canon 5D Mark IV. Sounds a little crazy, but I don't like taking pictures in my backyard. So I made a plan, and I'll talk about that more later in the video, but I basically wanted to do an initial kind of reactions video. This is my third attempt at it. First one I deleted, second one I shot and I haven't looked at yet, and then third one is happening now. So I'm going to talk about my initial reactions. Basically, I just drove 1,000 miles. I had to work today. Just got home. I got a drink. I'm going to sit here and talk about my camera. If you want to hang out with me and listen to me talk about my camera, I suggest you pour yourself a drink, whether it be coffee or whiskey or something else, whatever, and listen to me talk about the Canon 5D Mark IV. So I guess this weekend I really focused on photo. I didn't shoot any video. I don't even think I switched it into video mode, and if I did, it was probably on accident, and I switched it back to photo, which again solidifies the fact that I feel like I definitely got the right camera for me. I'm not going to just like love the Canon 5D. I have some critiques and I have some things to talk about, but I shot a lot of photos, and again, the 5D is a stills camera, always has been. Might not always will be, but currently Canon is obviously trying to keep it as a stills camera. So we'll talk about some video features later in this discussion as kind of my expectations for video, since I didn't really shoot it, because I'm going to talk about my expectations before I got the camera and then now, as well as I'm going to talk about my expectations before I shoot video, and then I'll talk about them afterwards as well, because I obviously have no problem talking. So photo. First off, my expectations going in, I'll be honest, I think my expectations going in were that I was going to be getting a camera that no one's ever seen before. And in reality, what I got was a Canon 5D Mark IV, which is a better version of the Canon 5D Mark III. It's better incrementally. It's not something revolutionary. I think it's for a certain type of person. I'm that type of person that just likes to be able to do whatever. Being just a photographer these days, or just a videographer, or just an editor, really isn't a viable option professionally. And if you want to make a decent income at all, you need to kind of branch out your knowledge base out of just one subject area. So that's why I do think I've made catalogs, commercials, TV shows, films, indies, documentaries. I sell photos. I do real estate photography. I do product photography. I do graphic design, basically anything that involves a computer and a camera. And so that's why the 5D Mark IV for me is a great option for today's landscape of potential jobs that I could get that I would need different features, i.e. a full frame sensor for 1080, potential 4K, because I do have one client that shoots only in 4K. And while the crop factor is a factor, it's not a deciding factor, but in the percentage of the pie of what I'm going to use this camera for, 4K is probably around 15%. So I can live with the crop factor, and as I've discussed previously, there's lenses that I can use despite the crop factor that will get me the shots that I need. And if not, then I'll use a different camera. I have 7 other cameras in this room that I can choose from that will get me the shot I need, and it can be my cell phone, to be completely honest with you. You know it, I know it. Cell phones are completely capable. Okay, I'm getting away from it. Anyway, it's a 5D Mark IV. Revolutionary upgrades as far as technology go. Battery life was fantastic. I used one battery for the entire trip, which consisted of 4 days of use with GPS mode 2 on, with 5-minute intervals. So that means that every 5 minutes when it was on and I was shooting, it would send a shot to the GPS. It doesn't, I mean, a lot of people, okay, that's maybe one of my expectations, was that when I take a picture, it automatically geotags that exact spot when I take that picture. That's not how it works. It has 2 different modes. You can either have it running consistently and while it's on or off. While it's off, it can either power on and do a tag, or off, but it's basically going to tag to the most relevant spot within that timing. So I'm actually loading the pictures into Lightroom right now, and that can be another process that we can talk about, since the RAW codec has not been updated by Adobe Camera Raw yet, and technically a lot of people can't edit any photos from the 5D Mark IV, which is a huge letdown. To just like spend all this money on a camera and then to go out and drive 1,000 miles and then come back and get the screen that this file is not compatible with Lightroom was crushing and made me want to rip my hair out. But in all honesty, I should have seen that coming, I guess. A little conversation before these flagship cameras are released, you would think maybe third-party programs as big as Adobe would get like a phone call, maybe an email like, hey, we're going to release this kind of big deal camera and your program's not going to work at all because we changed like these minor things in the RAW codec. So, yeah. So either way, again, I'm digressing because, again, you're choosing to hang out with me if you want to. So expectations, I think I've nailed it pretty good. It's the functions that it has. GPS, battery life was fantastic, as I said. It's faster, it's quieter. The touchscreen is really nice. The menu's deeper and more intuitive, tells you more information about what you're actually selecting, which is nice. I made some mistakes as well. I thought I was turning on my blinkers, my blinkies, highlight tone priority. And I have to look into this because I'm pretty sure highlight tone priority on my 70D turns on my blinkies, which is when you take a picture and your overexposed areas signify over highlighted. Just gonna be a lifesaver sometimes. And I thought I turned that on this, but apparently highlight tone priority in this is something completely different. And then we get into advanced ISO understandings because the camera has 21 stops of or the human eye has like 20 stops. And so I'm actually working on a video about advanced overknowledge of ISO, because when you think about it, in your photography, you learn, and most things, you learn like 75% of the knowledge you need to operate it very quickly, and that teaches you can learn that first 75. Imagine like day one that you haven't ever touched a camera before, and the last day that you ever touched a camera is like 0 or is like 100%, and the first day is 0%. So that first 75% can actually happen very quickly of, knowledge base, because you learn basic settings and exposure and composition and things very quickly. The last 25%, maybe 15% down to 10%, when you're really getting in the fine details of your photography, and you're like, how can I absolutely magnify my dynamic range? How can I get better sharpness? How can I get more detail? How can I plan for the editing process more? Things of that nature that really kind of bring your photography to the next level. So, damn, I forgot where I was going with this, and I had a really good point. Let me have a drink and think about it. Oh, of course, the ISO thing. So, basically, at this point, understanding the ISO and really understanding the ISO and the 3 types of ISO there are, and then native dynamic ranges, native ISO, and then what an amplified push or pull is from native, and how that affects those highlights and the stops in which you don't see. It's coming. I'll talk about that. So, expectations moving forward. I haven't shot video, but I'm going to shoot video. And so I used the dual pixel AF on the back of the camera while I was taking pictures, and I found it to be very helpful, because when at one point I set the camera on a rock to take a picture of this castle that was kind of overlooking the ocean, and I wanted to focus on the castle, but I didn't want to have to do that thing where you have to, since I use back button focus, and I turn to the castle and then focus on it and then turn my camera back, and then that focus distance isn't really right because I'm using single point AF. So being able to turn on the back screen of the camera and choosing that point in the live view, and then hitting my AF back button to focus on it without having to move the camera from the position in which it was set, was a big deal, considering it was a 5D, because again, this is a 5D, it feels like a 5D, it shoots like a 5D, and you're going to get a 5D result, just with some nice new bells and whistles. So shooting video, the one complaint that a lot of people really have, besides the crop factor in 4K, which again, if you understand the size of the sensor, it correlates. Again, you're using it, whatever. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But what I actually, I'm sitting here and I'm like, so what are the real effects of shooting a camera that has a high file size? And it made me think of film. When people shoot film, they have a very limited supply of film because it's expensive. Much like cards are not nearly as expensive as film, but they're expensive. So in essence, what it's doing is it's forcing you to be more selective with your shooting. And now from an editor's perspective, who's edited projects that certain people have overshot, per se, and there's a extensive amount of footage, per se, because with the availability of cheap cards and micro four thirds cameras, you can just run footage continuously for a very, very low cost. What that actually kind of develops into is the idea that you can just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and eventually something will come out of it, which is actually very much opposite the way a workflow for creating a film or anything should be. So with the, I know, again, I'm making excuses, I understand that, but it really will, because I was like, what is the cost to me of having a higher file size if shooting 4K? And again, let's remember that this argument is really solely around the size of 4K files. I mean, yes, all the files are going to be bigger, but still. Anyway, it's just going to mean you're going to be more conservative in your shooting, more planful. You're going to plan more for what you're going to shoot. So I don't really see that, because we're going to talk about the Sony versus the A7, or the Sony A7 R and S, because we're going to talk about both of those, because I went out for photo, and then either way, we'll get to it. That's it. Yeah, we're just going to go right to it, because shooting photos, everyone's like, well, the Sony's got full frame sensor for 4K, and yeah, it does. But when shooting full frame images, the Canon file size is 38 megabytes for one picture. The A7S or the A7R Mark II file size for its images are over 80 megabytes, which is more than double, close to triple, more like double the size of the files for the 5D. So you have a lot of video people bitching about the file size of the footage without taking a lot of things into account. I think what's happened is our society, and people have, and you maybe, have come to expect certain features in every single camera. I think Canon has decided that it's not going to do that. It doesn't really care what you think, because they're going to deliver what they think is a professional camera and has the features that they think will work and that are what you need. So again, going back to the argument of looking forward on video use, something like focus peaking versus DPAF. So you have the Sony a7S Mark II, which doesn't have any touchscreen at all. And then you have the Canon 5D Mark IV, which has DPAF and touchscreen, and you can operate that. So to you as a video shooter, what's more important? Focus peaking that tells you either A, what's in focus, or B, what's overexposed, because focus peaking, as you know, if you use a Sony a7S Mark II, is not that sharp. And you can often very close in low light miss your subject and your focus completely. And you because again, the screen to screen, a7S Mark II to Canon's new screen on the back of the 5D Mark IV, again, Canon has it. So to me as a video shooter, while I don't have the tilt screen, and that does suck, you know what I'm going to do to get around it? I'm going to get a mini HD little monitor. They're expensive, but they're awesome. And so if I need to get low angle shots, then I'll use that. But for the rest of the 89.5% of the time, I'll just use the back screen because it's awesome. DPAF right on it. Again, they don't do the articulating screen on the 5s. 1, for weather sealing. 2, because they just don't offer that in that line. The 6D Mark II will probably have it. So zebra stripes I didn't see them. I'm going to do a video maybe of the settings that I go through when I set on the camera. I turn off the automatic focus from the shutter button. I use back button focus only. I turn my ISO to full stops because I don't want to get into the amplified pulls and pushes that either clip or cut your blacks. That's it for that. What time we at? I've been talking for 16 minutes. Are you still listening? I think price when the Sony a7S Mark II came out was $32.99. When the Canon came out, it's $34.99. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was $30.99. I don't think it was any less than that. I know it was. I think it was more than the a7S Mark II. So, build quality doesn't even compare. Talked about that in another clip. The a7S Mark II is a fantastic camera. There's no question about it. But there isn't the professional build that I feel when holding the Canon 5D Mark IV. I went first night that I got the camera. I actually shot a review about it and then got drunk and deleted it on accident. But the point is that I went to this place called Pirate Tower, which is right on the ocean. I was in the water and I was shooting with the 5D Mark IV. It got wet by a wave and I had no qualms about it. I was totally okay with it. I wouldn't take a Sony anything into the water anywhere. I wouldn't even really, I don't think I'd take a Sony onto the sand. I have enough problems with sand in my tripods, just having them near there, let alone the salt in the air, that a Sony on a beach, to me, just seems like a bad idea. Some people are like, oh, the build quality's fine, I haven't had any overheating issues. Great, that's awesome. It doesn't feel like a Canon. Better screen, yeah. So the not being able to look through the EVF and have it turn and to be able to use during video mode, I was playing with it today with a director that I work with, and he immediately went to utilize that feature because he shoots with GH4s and A7Ss. So he just expected it, and I was like, no, it doesn't have that. But he was impressed with the low light performance, because he loves the availability of the A7S's Mark IIs to shoot in low light. I mean, it's in bad situations, automatic ISO on that thing can really save your ass. So use it. So that's that. I think I'll just cut it here. The other part that I was going to do was show you where I went and show you some of the pictures that I took, and show you that I was going to edit them. But maybe I'll just take a quick break, eat some dinner, and then I'll shoot the other half of this after that, which I'll just show you a couple of pictures from the 5, because I mean that's important. You want to see the output, right? So I'll choose a couple of pictures that I took, and because again, okay, one more huge downfall that I talked about briefly, if I didn't cover this, I'm repeating myself, but Adobe doesn't have the upgrade for the CR2 file, the RAW file. So Camera Raw codec in the Canon 5D Mark IV has changed, whatever change, and so those third-party programs haven't adapted to that yet. So you can't edit your photos in Lightroom or Photoshop unless you utilize a workaround. The only one that I've found that works is to open your photos in the Canon Professional editing software 4.5, whatever it's called, and then save them as I saved them as 16-bit TIFF files, because why the fuck not? So and I did manage to import those TIFF files into Lightroom. The question you're asking that I asked myself is, what is the loss between the conversion? And you're going to lose some, but again, we've become way over comfortable with what we're allowed to do in photos. So our expectations are kind of muted at this point in my consideration, but whatever. So that's that. I think those are my initial reactions. I look forward to going out and shooting some video and showing you that. I'll shoot the same shots in 1080 and 4K. I've stretched 1080 to 4K. It doesn't look bad. I've downgraded 4K to 1080. It gives you a lot more options. So, but again, then you're compressing crop. It's like a whole rabbit hole. So cheers, salut. I'll see you after dinner. So after editing, just going to wrap this up because now I'm full. I'm kind of tired and I'm ready to relax. But so I took the TIFF files and I put them through Lightroom and I did a quick edit on a few of them, and I'll show you them now. And I mean, this is really where it matters, I guess. Doesn't really matter anywhere else except for the final output. And I have to say, I'm very pleased with the final output. So along my trip, these are a couple of the shots that I took. This is near Big Sur. That's the Golden Gate Bridge at night. This is a little baby cow. It's a little, I think it's a deer with big ears or some other deer-like creature. Point Reyes Lighthouse. And I'm going to post these, and I'll post the link to the website where you can see them down below in the show notes if you want to take a closer look at them in full resolution. I'll post them on my website. So got a couple different things in different ranges: close-ups, high detail, high highlights, dark shadows, a little bit of minimalism, little animals, little scenery, little lights, little color, a little bit of everything. I just tried to try it out in different ranges and see what it came back with. It's pretty happy. A couple of these shots. And oh, of course, I can't forget on the map. I can go up, and that's where all my shots were, as I told you. I normally just pick a point that's as far as I want to go, and on this trip, that was the Point Reyes Lighthouse, which is this shot right there. Shows up, and that's even transferred through the TIFF data through the Canon program, because again, these are not through the RAWs. That's where the deer was. That's where the tree. Oh, that's where the cow was. It's the trees, I think. Yeah, that's the trees. It's over here. Oh yeah, that thing. So as you can see, I was driving around a little bit, kind of checking the place out. So yeah, it was fantastic, and I'm really happy with the output. Images look great. And I don't even have my 5K screen in front of me. That's at the studio. I will check these pictures out on that tomorrow. So that's it. I'm tired. I drove 1,000 miles. I had a great time. It was me, my dog, my Jeep, driving on the back roads, getting lost, listening to tunes. We had a blast. Someone asked me, like, are you a photographer? And I was like, no, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.